Okay, I think we're good to go. Welcome everyone to another developer Q&A. We're back to our usual time slot this week. And this week we are joined by Steacy and Simon. Steacy is our product owner and Simon is I always forget the exact way that you phrase your title, lead designer. It's a really easy one and I should not be forgetting it. I look at so many of these every day and I'm like, God, I should really be remembering. So yeah, just in case anyone here hasn't heard either of you talking on our wonderful Q&As before, would you mind just doing a quick introduction to yourselves and what you do in Ravenbound?
Absolutely. So yes, as you can see, today we are both Simon. We're sitting in the room together, which is nice, cozy. But yes, I'm Steacy. I'm the product owner. So handling a lot of the business side of the project and making sure that the resources and the people and everything we need to make an awesome game is aligned with what we're putting out there for the players.
Nice. Yeah, and my name is Simon. I'm lead designer, plan design stuff, and I've worked as a tech designer before, so I jump in and help with that whenever needed. And then, it's a mix of planning and designing and helping other designers do great things in the game.
Awesome. Thank you both for that. With that, I think we can go ahead and we can dive into some discussion about patch 1.0.4. Pixel Rick here saying that they're going to post the strat for the sub 40 runs on the day of the patch. We love to see, the second that it's no longer perfectly accurate, that's when you start giving the information.
But it's good, so that it stays competitive.
Trade secrets.
Exactly, trade secrets. But I'm excited to try out Pixel Rick's strat.
Yeah, for sure. I'm so curious to see what it is. I mean, chances are I just won't have the hands to do it, but at the same time, I'm really interested to give it a go.
Yeah, exactly. There's no chances my reflexes will be able to execute on the strategy, but maybe it'll take a minute off of my several hours run. My record's a little higher than Pixel Rick's.
A little bit for me as well, yeah. Okay, right. I think we can go ahead and dive into patch 1.0.4 because that is the major discussion point we have for today. Obviously, we have some space for any other questions that anyone has, but patch 1.0.4 is rapidly approaching and we would like to take a bit of time to talk about what we are planning. So, Simon, I think this is primarily going to be a question for you, but obviously, Steacy, feel free to hop in anywhere that you have anything to add. What are the main changes that we're bringing in patch 1.0.4?
Yeah, it's a very exciting patch. We're looking at some of the feedback regarding, like Pixel posted in the text channel here, like re-rolling characters and making sure that you get to play the vessel you want to play. That has been a big thing that people have asked about, and it's, I would say, the premier thing coming in 104. So basically, once that's rolled out, you should be able to pick whatever folk you have unlocked for your character, and you can pick whatever weapon trait you have unlocked for your character and whatever unique trait you want. So you could compose whatever character you want from the available options you have. So you don't have to worry about like unlocking a trait and, oh no, now I need to reroll my character more if I don't like that trait. No need to worry about that. Unlock whatever you want and decide in the vessel select what you want to play at that time. And for people who just want something random, like sometimes when I jump in, I just want to see what I get. There should be the option to do that as well. You can just press a button and get a random collection of your folk or traits and weapons. And on top of that, if you want to, you can also randomize the visuals amongst the set we have. So you can't like pick the specific color or the specific antlers, but you can randomize between the options that exist. So that's going to be quite big, I think, for anyone who has like a strategy that they want to test that requires a certain trait. I think it's going to be hopefully quite excited about this because now it's going to be a lot easier, a lot less time spent re-rolling.
Yeah, I mean, that vessel select change is obviously huge, right? This is a major part of how you get into the game. I know for me, I'm like you, I quite like having a random option, but making it an option is really great. And being able to, like, sometimes you just want to hop in with twin axes and, all the aggressive traits and just go. So like having that option available is also really, really cool. Something I'm looking forward to a lot anyway. So obviously that's vessel select. That's the big thing. And we know a little bit about the reasoning behind, what we're going. How did we arrive at the decision to change this? Was it really mainly community feedback? Was it internal feedback? Was it a combination of the lot?
I would say it's a combination. I would say like a lot of us on the team kind of just randomly roll characters to play, unless we need to like debug something or test if something is specifically is working, and then we have our in-house tools. So I think even though like we've talked about it internally, it was clearly something that like when people started playing and people started like discovering and really bring up that this was an issue for them. I saw someone commenting that they just like they were out of legacy, I think, so they just flew out and ended the run kind of over and over again. And like reading that, I was just like, we need to help people not have to do this. The time you spend in the game should be playing the game, having fun with it. I mean, we've talked about it before, but seeing the community's reaction, it becomes a no-brainer that we need to make sure that that's a better experience for everyone.
Yeah, it was something that for sure was communicated by the community a lot, requested a lot specifically. I can really relate to that guy. Like, I love to choose my character. You know, I'm a big, like, Crusader Kings, Sims, Animal Crossing, like anything where I can, you know, have some design control. And I really, really love the non-human folk. So I can relate to that guy. So I'm personally very excited about this. And I think it's going to be just a nice touch to be able to kind of play the way you want to with your vessel in each run. But also still for the people who want the pure vessel experience, you can still randomize.
Yeah, and depending on what people want, more kind of rewards for randomizing and stuff like that, or challenges tied to that, that's something we can look into. But right now, it's just you get to choose. There's nothing pulling you to either. You choose your destiny for it. One thing that is coming in with this is kind of not something we really talked about, but that we've seen that in the community, but also in the team, I would say it's like when we talk about what difficulty you're playing the game at or how far into the game you are, it can become a little bit muddy. So we're actually changing a little bit how we talk about difficulty. So when you're in the vessel selection screen, changing difficulty is now going to look a little bit different. And the difficulties have their own kind of names, like normal, hard, and nightmare. So hopefully it's a very small change, but hopefully it makes it easier to at least talk about the difficulties. And you don't think if someone is talking about how far into a run they are or whatever.
Feels like the three options of life: normal, hard, and nightmare.
Yes.
Yeah. I always love nightmare as a descriptor for a difficulty level. It's very evocative. You know, it really tells you the experience that we're going for here, which is like you should not be able to pass this unless things go really right for you.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really fun difficulty level to have. You know, the kind of level of mastery we're already seeing from some of the players of this game is like really, really outstanding. And we think that, you know, as we start to roll out more and more content and changes and all this kind of stuff, we're only going to see that level of mastery go higher. So we want to make sure that nightmare is always there as like if you're really good at the game, give this a go and see how far you can get.
We'll always offer nightmare.
Yes, but like this patch, we've changed the name, kind of the framing of it, but they are still kind of I would say like normal is the most balanced for experience. So nightmare is really, really, really punishing and challenging. So don't feel bad if you don't play at nightmare. Hard is hard enough.
I don't agree. I think feel very bad if you don't play nightmare. I want to see Pixel Rick's 40-minute run on nightmare.
Oh God, I don't think that's gonna be possible.
You've raised the challenge.
No.
That does sound like a bit of a step.
Yeah, I agree. I will let you know, Pixel Rick, when I start speedrunning at that. But
amazing.
But we've done some other things that we can talk about, I think, for 104 as well.
Yes, let's.
Absolutely.
So there is some new cards coming. 6 cards to be specific, I think. 5 cards.
Yep.
5 cards.
5, yeah.
And some of these might help, like they're not directly related to speedrunning, but some of them, you could probably play them in a way where you might get away with farming a little bit less. So potentially, if you're lucky, you could hit a way to utilize these cards to play faster, basically, get a build going faster. So we have, I think the one I'm really excited about is Inner Growth. It's a new bounty card where when you play it, you get to draw cards. You get to draw as many cards as you've played during that visit to the hand screen. So if you open up your hand screen, you play 3 cards, and then you play this card, you basically just draw 3 cards again. So that can really help you get going fast, and maybe then you can risk not farming as much, which is quite interesting.
I love that. And I love the name Inner Growth. It feels very, like a journey, like a zen moment. Like me when I'm doing my yoga. That's
We have a card named Meditation as well to really drive home this.
Amazing.
And meditation in the yoga theme reduces the mana cost of the cards in your hand.
Of course, mana.
Yeah. So there's some fun kind of cardy cards, I would say, which is kind of what we're going for. We want to make sure that our bounty cards can really feel like cards and have those cardy mechanics, like reducing the cost of other cards in your hand, or maybe you drain a random card in your hand, but you get the mana cost of that, for example.
Yeah, I know one of the one of the reasons that we were looking at this is like you were saying there, to make these cards kind of feel a bit more cardy, as you're putting it, or make them touch more systems that aren't just, obviously you have your weapon and your armor cards and those kinds of things, and they directly, like their equipment, they directly interact with your stats. But a lot of the other bounty and that kind of stuff cards that we were seeing were also really focused on your stats or that kind of stuff. And some of these cards, obviously we've talked about meditation and inner growth. We also have a few others. Minor Pandemonium is you can drain a random card in your hand and gain mana equal to its mana cost. That's a mechanic that we didn't really have before. Or Potted Riches, where somewhere in the current region a gold pot filled with 200 coins will appear, which I think is really fun because it starts a kind of a treasure hunt if you want to do that. It's obviously not a speedrunning card, but it's interacting with a different part of the world and a different part of the game that maybe we didn't touch with cards before. Is that a direction that you think the team is looking to work in? Can we expect to see more cards interacting with even more systems and features in the future?
Yeah, and we are really excited about this kind of direction.
Definitely.
So it's a start, right? So now we want to see how the community feels about that direction, and then based on that, I guess that's going to inform future cards. But we are really excited, and I think it's a good direction.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is something that we feel answers something from the community that we're super excited to put out there, but that we also want players to try and give feedback on. I mean, that's what we want for everything. And then if it's popular, definitely there will be more.
Steacy, maybe this is something you can talk to a little bit. So when we introduce these cards and other cards in the future, how do we evaluate, whether they're successful, whether they're going to hit the mark that we were looking for with them?
It's a really good question, and it's something that we work with, honestly, a lot of teams. We work with a lot of teams to try to make sure that we get balance right. So I think Simon can also, speak to this as well, but some of the things that we look at are community feedback. That is super important to us. That gives us a lot of information on do things feel right and do things feel fun. And it gives us a lot of clues on where to look, because another thing that we do is we use a lot of balancing data. So like, how are people playing the cards? And is that what we expected? Does that look balanced? Does that, and if it's not what we expected, do we think it's still fun, or is it messy? And, sometimes someone will say, okay, yeah, but this is not so fun for me, and then we can go and confirm like, oh yeah, that's not balancing the way we expect. But even before all of that, that's when we put it out there. We do a lot of internal play testing, so really utilizing everyone on the team to just play and see, like, does this feel good? Like, is it fun? Do you feel like you can make a nice deck? Do you feel like you can be strategic? I'm a big strategy fan myself, so it's nice when you feel like, okay, I can plan to order these in a way that is going to make my playthrough the most exciting. So there's a bunch of stuff that we look at. But also, Simon, I think you guys in design, like...
Yeah, it's a very common discussion about like the balance of our cards and how we feel about them. It can be quite tricky. Like, the data really helps us kind of find threads that we then investigate. It's kind of how I see it. So we can check out like, okay, this trait is maybe not performing that well. Okay, but why can that be? Because sometimes it's not maybe the trait itself, but that there's not enough builds that you can get going with them, or the builds that you can get going is not strong enough, not really incentivizing you to pick that trait. So it's not there's a lot of investigation, I would say, and kind of figuring it out and testing things. Which is why those playtests internally are so important. Like confirming that is this actually moving the needle, kind of.
And that's probably, why I'm kind of guessing here, looking from the outside in, but like that kind of thing of maybe there just isn't enough that interacts with this. Is that maybe the reason that Blazebrand came around, which is a card that we're introducing that when a nearby enemy is burning, you're frenzied? Is that kind of where that came from?
Yeah, so we want to make sure that there are more relics that interact with different status effects. And this is this is a first step in that. We are excited about doing more of this and moving more of that status effect power into relics. Because right now you can kind of get locked into to get this build running, I almost need this specific weapon because otherwise I don't have a good trigger for my effect. And it's not a trigger for the effect, but an add-on, a boost, right? You become more powerful for it. However, that is something we've kind of identified that we are also lacking some relics that interact with Frenzied in a fun way. So we have some traits that interact with it, and we want to make sure that we add more things to boost kind of the status effects connected to your two defensive mechanics. So if you do a perfect dodge, you become Frenzied. And we have some traits that interact with that, but we want to expand that a little bit. So you can have that moment where when you're frenzied, that's super great. And that would then hopefully boost the relic that makes you frenzied whenever you have great health, for example. And we have the same with Perfect Guard. When you become invulnerable, we want to in the future look into boosting that kind of status on yourself. Make sure that you have more opportunities to build around it. Because right now you can definitely build around your guard and make use of the invulnerability that you get from a perfect guard. But we want to make sure that there's also the opportunity to go, but I'm mainly guarding for the invulnerability, and that's the trigger for all of my cool relics. So this is maybe a sneak peek in one of the directions we want to go with cards. It's like more cardy cards and more cards that interact in fun ways with our status effects to create more varied builds.
Yeah, I was about to say, I just think the fact that, you get, it interacts with things like fire makes it just a lot cooler. And I also like the descriptor cardy cards.
Yes.
The cardiest of cards.
I love it. Cardy cards is another one of those great descriptors that, we want these cards to feel really cardy. It sounds nonsensical, but it actually makes perfect sense. I love it. It's such a great descriptor. Patch update cardy cards, that's the one.
Yes.
Pixelric, I'm replying to you here with text as well. I know you've had the question a few times around warden-specific rewards. I think that's still an ongoing discussion around, both progression between runs, but also progression during runs, that kind of stuff. I don't think we have a satisfying answer for you right now, but as soon as we have an answer, trust me, we've seen your question and we will make sure to let you know as soon as we have something there. So that's the major kind of points of the the main content of the patch is the vessel select screen and the new cards. Unless we missed anything in the new cards there, I think we covered all of them. Obviously, just to recap the cards that we're adding, we've Potted Riches, which adds a golden pot filled with 200 coins somewhere in the current region. We have Minor Pandemonium, which drains a random card in your hand, and you gain mana equal to its mana cost. I kind of like how a lot of the strategy in the last couple of patches has leaned towards having more cards in your hand, and this kind of actively goes against that. That's a fun little bit there. Inner Growth, which makes you draw a card for each card played during this visit to is it the card screen that you said, Simon? Or is it
the vessel screen. So we have the vessel select at the beginning of runs, and then you have the vessel screen in the run where you view your relics and your current equipments. Gotcha. And it's in the vessel screen where you play your cards. Yep. Internally, we kind of just refer to this as the hand screen because it's where you see your card hand. But I think I'm going off memory, but I think on the card it should read that it's the vessel screen, right? Yeah. So when you play it, you draw the amount of cards you've played in this current visit to the hand screen.
Yeah.
Or the vessel screen, sorry. Internal terminology mix up.
All good. And then there's Blazebrand, which when a nearby enemy is burning, you're frenzied, and Meditation, which reduces the mana cost of each card in your hand by 2. That's a powerful card to pick up. I know I end up mana capped quite a lot in my runs because I tend to like those shiny high mana cards. But yeah, loving the look of this. Kind of moving past these then, obviously, every patch, there's a lot of bug fixes, crash fixes, all that kind of stuff. Is there anything particularly interesting to talk about in this patch?
Yeah, so there are definitely a lot of bug fixes going into this patch. I think especially in audio, and we've got some fixes on the tutorial moments as well, quite a few. And as always, we are introducing new crash fixes, so we're hoping that this will make the playthrough even smoother for everyone. But yeah, I don't have a fixed favorite, but there's a few bug fixes going into this one for sure.
Yes, we have one that I'm quite excited about, but it's so last patch we introduced the new hatred cards, right? So the hatred is now attacking you in a sense in a much more varied way. It's not just enemies get stronger; you can lose coins, you can lose mana. But one of the things that we changed in that patch was that instead of every enemy getting a 5% increase to their damage and health, they would get kind of a comparatively to a 4% increase based on hatred level. But it's tweaked on individual enemies because sometimes if you boost the health of a troll by 5%, it's really noticeable. But if you boost the health of a small tooth tier with 5%, it's not noticeable. So we've kind of tweaked it so that it's more about the perception of 4% rather than the 4 actual percent. Mm-hmm. But in that change, we actually lost some of the increase to damage on enemies. So this current patch, you've still had a health increase on enemies based on hatred level, but the damage increase has not worked as intended. So now we're fixing that bug that we introduced in last patch with the damage tied to hatred level. So we will see how it feels. If it feels like hatred level suddenly is really, really punishing and it's not fun to engage with, then please voice your concerns. We will really try to monitor this closely. But I'm excited to see how fixing this is gonna affect my runs. But that's kind of an interesting bug fix, I would say. That's could be missed in the bug section, but it's gonna have kind of a big effect if you're amassing tons of hatred. If you're going one of those full hatred runs.
Yeah, I've seen a few of those being talked about in Game Talk in the last week or two. Who is it that's been doing those? Was it Ando or was it All or Slow Pants, Fast Hands? I can't remember which one of them it was. But there's a couple of people. Yeah, it was Ando. I know I saw a couple of people on Steam as well talking about the same thing, where they're doing these really, really high hatred runs, and I think they might find them a little bit trickier going forward. Yeah, the 50 hatred run.
Yeah,
I respect that.
Didn't he say he was also?
I don't care if they hate me.
I think he was aiming for 100 hatred run, but wasn't ever able to make it happen because that would be actually insane. The betrayer kill was absurd. I remember seeing that. Yeah.
So Ando will probably still be able to kill the betrayer in the same amount of time, but they probably don't want to get hit by the betrayer after this bug fix.
Avoid getting hit.
Yeah.
But Pixelrick has a question about where you can find the meditation and inner growth.
Yes. So I'm going off memory, so this might be incorrect, but I think meditation is rare and inner growth is legendary. I feel fairly confident on the inner growth rarity. They should probably be rare and legendary or somewhere along those lines. So inner growth, definitely you want to pick up those legendary golden chests to have the highest chance of getting them. Meditation is something you're gonna see without necessarily target farming the really most valuable chests. But yeah, like you said, Pixel Rick, like they are a really strong card pairing. Like you can get crazy runs with that.
I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. We have one extra question that came in that's a little bit off the topic of 1.0.4, and maybe we can take any remaining questions we have on that before we close. But just to go a bit off topic for a minute, Fostered Lol asked, I've been really impressed with the world and environment of Ravenbound. As a young dev, I'm wondering what tools, techniques, or workflows went into creating the world. I know we don't have a member of the team that created the world here with us, but Simon, is this something you might be able to give even a little bit of kind of insight into from your perspective?
Yeah, I can give a small hint into it, but like stated, I'm not a world designer. We have a bunch of world designers at different divisions here, but at Ravenbound right now, we don't have the world designer that created the world with us, but I can go slightly into it. So basically, the first thing is we create everything in Apex engine. So we have an editor for Apex that allows us to create very large worlds. And one of the huge benefits with this engine is that I can build in one end of the island, and I can fly over to the other end of the island in mere seconds and continue my work over there. And if I place down some crates at that side, I can press one button and I'm in-game in a second, and I can run around and test it. So I think tools make your journey in open world development a lot easier if they are made for open world development. So in this case, Apex helped us a ton. So that's kind of the technical side of that from a non-technical person in that sense, right? Because we can talk about how we handle that big of a world, but that would be left to maybe more deep code people making this Apex engine really shine. But then from approaching it from the design perspective, it's really like scaling up the idea. Like you can find a lot of talks, I think, about like level design on YouTube, but not that many on articles about world design in particular. It can be a bit harder in my experience. But in reality, it's a lot of the same. It's just scaled up. Like you treat the entire world as a level. But you're obviously, camps and stuff like that is very different. But it's like a prop in a level. It's opportunities, it's moments. And depending on the open world, you will think of mountains as T-intersections. Like you can probably find a YouTube video with someone talking about how you use T-intersections from a level design perspective to really create these environmental storytelling moments where you, just by having that T-intersection, you know where the player looks before, and you can kind of, maybe you put up a large poster about the carnival in the T-intersection, and that's a great way to kind of tell people about the world without them actually thinking. Maybe they don't even stop and look at the poster, they just walk past it. Because of the placement in the T-intersection, you still kind of learn about it. And every player going through that T-intersection will have had it in their kind of in their sightlines. And a mountain is the same thing. Place a cool kind of dragon skeleton head, like you've seen in some open world games previously, on a mountain, and you treat the mountain as a T-intersection, you have the same thing. It's just on a much larger scale. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I can talk a little bit too. I don't know, we got old school tools or techniques. But I think that something that's always important is that you lay out your rules, or we sometimes call them pillars or things like that. But when you have a collection of your kind of rules of your world and what is this world like, I mean, that enables your work in it, especially if you're in a larger team as well. If you're multiple people, to really be able to build up that world in a way that is going to feel cohesive. Because when you're a player, something we really try to do with Ravenbound is make sure that you really feel like you're getting dropped into a world of like Scandinavian folklore, and that feels like cool and melancholy and all those pieces. So I think the other less cool thing than the engine is don't forget your documentation. I mean, think through first what you are trying to, what this world is, and then find all the cool tools to build it.
What, you mean I'm not supposed to just decide I'm building a world and jump immediately into building it and all of my tools, and then suddenly realize that I have no idea where I'm going and abandon the project halfway through? This is a shocking revelation to me. I'm not speaking from experience.
McDara, you've been doing it all wrong.
I'm doing it as a hobbyist. I can be forgiven.
That's true. If you're a hobbyist, you can do whatever you like.
Yeah, then have fun with it.
Exactly. The only rule is to have fun when you're a hobbyist.
Thanks, William, for that. It was a great answer, I think, in and of itself. Obviously, we can't have the direct answer of exactly how we did it on Ravenbound in particular, just given that we don't have access to that team member for these Q&As. But I think that's a great place to start, especially, Foster Law said, young dev looking for a bit of insight. I think that's some really, really great information. So hoping that gets back to the right people and is helpful to some of you listening out there. Pixel Rick did have one other question, and Simon, maybe you know this. If not, maybe we can look for clarification for it for you later. Pixel Rick asked me my question: since the middle or the second drawn card is mana or gold, will that be the same, or do these new cards? So I think in particular this is Inner Growth and Meditation. Would they occupy the same space as that second space, or would you expect them to be added to the first or third space? This is way over my head, so I'm not sure if you're able to answer that, or if that's something we need to look into or find out through experience.
I will have to look into it, but I don't know. But I would be surprised if it can occupy the center space. I think we try to really reserve the center space in chests for mana or gold. So I would be surprised if they can appear there. And I can't remember I have seen it, but I will make sure that I confirm. But I think it's the center card should be safe as a mana or con card.
I mean, hey, we'll definitely find out when we start playing those runs in the new patch, right? If we start seeing them there, then that's when we know for sure. But no, it's all good. You know, keep a bit of exploration in there for you. You know, keep those strategies evolving.
Yeah, really excited to see the strat drop.
Yes,
with the patch.
And I would say, like, if when you play the game, if you get like a spark of inspiration and you're like, wow, this card should exist but doesn't exist, like, post it. Like, we read so much in the Discord or Steam forums, and like I have the Reddit on my the subreddit, so post it and we will definitely read it. So it's greatly appreciated.
Yeah. And we really we all do. So it's super appreciated. And we're all in the Discord on the subreddit. I'm also subscribed to the subreddit. So yeah, share your feedback. Keep helping us.
Yeah, so we had one last question, which, unless there's anything either of the two of you want to talk about in the patch, I think we're through everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, so we had one last question, which was, do we have a planned release date? And yes, we do. We have permission to talk or to announce it. Just to preface that this could change a little bit if there's any kind of last minute changes that we encounter that we need to have or that need to happen before the patch goes out. But currently, the planned release date for this patch is next Monday, the 29th of May. I am just making sure that that hasn't changed in the meantime. Oh boy.
It's May 29th. Yeah. Can confirm.
you know when you say it and suddenly you're like, huh? Is that right? And you just have like a mini moment of panic, even though you know it's correct because you've been staring at it for a week while preparing the patch notes. Yeah, no. Yeah. May 29th is our current target date for patch 1.0.4. We will obviously let everyone know if that changes, but if everything goes well, then you can look forward to being able to play with those new cards and the new vessel select from next Monday onwards. We usually aim to patch kind of mid-afternoon for us, just to make sure that we have time to do our final checks in the morning and also keep an eye in the evening to make sure nothing is on fire. But yeah, so you can keep an eye out for it then. That's the big news. Simon and Steacy, anything else you want to add on towards the end of this Q&A? I think we've covered pretty much everything we came in to cover, but is there anything else you want to shout out?
No, just the same as always, and which I actually just said, but keep on giving feedback. It's been great reading about it. It's been really fun hearing about the speed runs and the insane hatred runs as well. So it's super fun and it helps us make good decisions and improve the game. So thank you so much for everyone who does that.
Thank you, and we're really excited about the upcoming patch. We hope you are too, and we're looking forward to talking to you more post-patch and seeing what you think.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can keep an eye out for the patch notes. They'll have all of the details on all of these changes, and then obviously you'll be able to get your hands on the actual patch itself on Monday, as long as nothing goes wrong in the meantime. But we're looking good. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Thanks so much, Steacy and Simon, for hopping in. It was great to have you, and thanks everyone who was in asking questions and chatting with us as always. And we will see you next week. I believe we are we're still in our usual slot next week. So see you back here same time next week. Thanks a million, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye everyone.